Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and journalist and broadcaster Henry Winter. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run everyone through the back pages then, starting with the Mirror. Rush to go. He wants to skip United tour of US to find new clubs. Stokes eyes a big summer. As for the Eye, Brentford tell United to up their offer for Buba. Stokes goes into bat for Archer. It's Jofra Archer, of course. Captain insists fast bowler is on track to play in India series. Front of the Telegraph says win or bust. Penny finally drops for Bazball. Australia in plastic Lions jibe. Liverpool set to move for Gahey after Quansah sale. Back of the Guardian, we must be smarter. Stokes calls on England to learn from weaknesses. Maresca has not spoken to Mudryk about doping charge. Back of the Mail says Stokes fizzing. Ben calls for champagne cricket to crush India. Liverpool go for Gahey with Quansah off to Germany. As for the Express, good is not good enough, says Stokes as he prepares for the ultimate 10-game test. We have to be great. A Rashford ramps up exit plan. And the front of the Times says don't doubt Lions' desire, Schmidt told, and Liverpool take a look at Gahey. But we are going to start in the back of the Mirror and we're going to focus on Marcus Rashford, Henry, a man you've spoken to many times, of course, and have been all over this kind of Marcus Rashford saga from start to finish. Says here that he doesn't want to go to the US and he's pretty keen on a move and he wants to stay here to finalise it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that echoes Ruben Amorim's thinking as well. I'd be amazed if he went on the pre-season tour. He's not in Amorim's plans. He hasn't been for about 5 or 6 months. So it's now just a question of Marcus Rashford working out where he can go. He's been out working on his fitness in Marbella, conveniently in Spain, which I'm sure is where he would really like to move to. But if you look at some of the stories coming out of Barcelona today, they're very much interested in Nico Williams. They've obviously got Rafinha, who's been outstanding for them on the left. So I think their financial and footballing issues in the way of Marcus Rashford actually getting his desire, which is to go to Barcelona. I think at some point he's going to have to address the issue of his wages and take a cut if he is to get his dream move somewhere, because he has to move, he has to play. He has no future at Manchester United. And he's probably slightly in Thomas Tuchel's thinking, but he needs to play if he's going to get anywhere near that World Cup squad.
Jonathan, did Rashford's stock rise with his little stint at Aston Villa?
Yeah, I think he did. I actually think he did better than a lot of people expected him to. He contributed with goals and assists. He looked busy. He could have fitted into Unai Emery's plans and his system. But that doesn't appear to be a long-term option for him. And this is the conundrum, really. Now that he has essentially been frozen out by Amorim, I don't see too many elite clubs, or even sort of fringes of the elite clubs, where he readily fits in, that have a pressing need for a guy on of very high wages, as Henry said, whose game hasn't really developed since he was about 20, and it's not entirely his fault. The chaos at Manchester United over the last decade has I think really kind of stunted his development as a footballer to the extent where he almost kind of looks like a forward who is kind of out of step with the prevailing trends. You look at teams like PSG, you look at Barcelona under Hansi Flick, and the energy, the lightning intensity with which they play, not just on the ball but out of possession too. And I think if he's really serious about rebooting his career, he needs to find a club and a coach that is going to develop those areas of his game that are going to future-proof his game for the next 5 years. Because and I think that might well mean taking a bit of a step down and a bit of a swallow of pride to a club that may not have initially been in his bracket of favoured destinations.
OK, just at the back of the Sun, Henry, we're going to kind of continue with this Marcus Rashford theme, but throw into the mix Garnacho, Antony and Sancho. The Sun saying that they are, well, it says grounded here, but that Ruben Amorim is set to not take these guys on the US tour. Their days all numbered at Manchester United, do you feel?
Yeah, and there has been for a while. I mean, particularly for reasons of wages and also tactically. I mean, the way that Ruben Amorim plays, 3-4-2-1, he doesn't play with flying wingers in the Manchester United mould. It's not 4-4-2, it's not sort of 4-3-3. So I think the wingers are absolutely being moved on. You look at the type of player that he's been targeting, Mateus Cunha, who's come in, he's a number 10. So, I think their days are numbered. But it's going to be quite a sort of lively five-a-side session at Carrington when the team are touring America.
Absolutely. Just Jonathan, just one thing on the kind of players' wages, because Henry made the point about a player, reduced. No one likes their wages going down, but the wages are still pretty decent. Let's be honest. And if you need to take a pay cut, I mean, do footballers see it like that? I mean, I suppose everyone's different, but it seems like if you've got to make the move, you've got to cut your wages.
Yeah, I mean, there are two elements to this, and obviously the financial aspect is important because it's a short career, and they are there are things like taxes and agents' fees and all those kind of associated expenditures, and they are basically trying to set themselves up for the rest of their career in this very short window. But there is also a kind of there's a status element to it. I mean, within a dressing room, players are going to have a fairly good idea or certainly an interest in what their teammates are being paid. There is a certain status, I think, dressing room status associated with having that big pay packet, getting the big new deal, and the self-esteem comes into it as well. So taking a pay cut, and everyone knowing that you've taken a pay cut, I think that does kind of have a bit of an effect on a player's self-esteem and by extension potentially the sort of football and their confidence on the pitch.
OK, so those players out of favour at Manchester United. One who might well be very much in favour, Henry, Bryan Mbeumo, who could be going the other way. The Eye say Brentford tell United to up their offer. This is always the case with Manchester United, aren't they? Clubs know that they're pretty desperate to sign these forward players, and there's a bit of a Manchester United tax potentially. What do you make of where it's being positioned at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's been linked with Thomas Frank at Tottenham for obvious reasons. I find it fascinating the link with Manchester United. I mean, look, 20 goals this season, the assists as well, his work ethic, his character is everything that Manchester United really need. But then again, you're running into a Manchester United sort of stockpiling number 10s where they used to sort of stockpile sort of wingers. I know he plays sort of slightly wide, but if he's what does this mean for Mason Mount? What is this? Obviously, Bruno Fernandes is going to start. Mateus Cunha is going to start. They're still looking for a number 9. And Mbeumo is a very good player, very versatile player, but I don't necessarily see him as an out-and-out centre-forward number 9 like a Gyökeres, which is really what Manchester United need. So I think there's sort of tactical issues there. Look, he's such a talented player. I'm sure he would force his way in somehow. But actually, when you look at what Manchester United need, they need a very mobile, ball-playing, ball-winning central midfielder. They need a more reliable goalkeeper than Onana at the moment, rather than another, even if he is an outstanding attacking player in Bryan Mbeumo.
Jonathan, what's your take on Mbeumo?
He's a great player. I mean, I agree with Henry. His character is flawless. I think he's had a great season with Brentford. I would worry if United were essentially relying on him to pick up the slack in terms of goals from players like Højlund and Xerxes, because even though he has had a great season, his underlying figures actually suggest that it's been kind of a unicorn season for him in front of goal, and that he is much more of a creative forward, someone who creates space, someone who fits into a tactical system rather than your quintessential target man, or someone you could rely on for 20-25 goals a season, which he hasn't really consistently produced in his career. So I think he is a great person to have around. He's a great talent, but he does need to be used in a way that I think gets the best out of a central striker rather than being that main guy himself.
OK, let's look at some players further back on the pitch. And Mark Gahey, Henry, the back of the Mail, saying that Liverpool go for Gahey with Jarell Quansah off to Germany. Newcastle, of course, were linked with him throughout the last window, or the summer window, but it looks like Liverpool pretty keen on him.
Yeah, and rightly so. I mean, he's an outstanding player. I think he and Konsa are England's starting pair. I mean, Tuchel has to sort of decide on that. He seems to be rotating a little bit. But Mark Gay, absolutely, 23 caps already. He's 24 years of age. He's been a captain character. I mean, you talk to people at Palace and they say from 18, 19, he was a sort of natural leader. He's not a sort of shouter, but he's just got this sort of calmness. Great role model off the pitch as well. Very interesting character, very religious individual, and just as a player, calm, controlled. I mean, it'd be interesting how they juggle it with Virgil van Dijk, who plays left, who plays right. But I think they also, I mean, I'm out here at the under-21s and I've spoken to Joel Kwanzaa, and I mean, he absolutely needs to play. But I think one thing that really isn't being mentioned enough in the background is that Liverpool really have to sort out Ibrahim Konaté's signing as well, sorting that one out before Kwanzaa goes. But absolutely, if you bring a player like Mark Gahey in and you have Konaté and obviously Virgil van Dijk, one of the best centre-halves, top 3 centre-halves in the world, that is formidable. I mean, Liverpool really are doing great business in this window.
They certainly are. Well, as Wirtz is getting closer, isn't it, Jonathan? And then you add Gahey potentially to those defenders that Henry mentions. Does he? I mean, he probably has to start. But if you've got Konaté and you've got Virgil van Dijk, then it's a nice problem for Arne Slot to have.
It is, and I think there was at the start, like this time last season, I think there were indications that Kwanzaa was going to be that guy, and I think he's had a few. There's probably too many mistakes in his game that he needs to iron out, and I think there's some talk that he'll go to Leverkusen. 30 million is a good price for him, and if you bring in Gahey, I think it's a real statement of intent, along with whatever it is, 115 million on Florian Wirtz. That is, and then Milos Kerkez is coming in as well. That deal appears to be quite close. That's essentially 200 million in the space of a week or so. That is a big statement of intent, and Gahey in particular. Because of the sort of player he is, but not just in terms of his defensive skills, but his distribution and his leadership, it suggests to me that while he forms an incredible partnership with Van Dijk in the short term, Van Dijk is 33. In the long term, he is the kind of guy that you would look at as a potential replacement.
Do we see, Henry, that if Liverpool do kind of make this happen with Wirtz about to sign, the deals that Manchester City have done as well, we've seen those two kind of powerhouses make some pretty early moves in the window. And how nervous should fans of other clubs, the Arsenals and one or two others around the top of the table, be when these signings are getting done with relative ease?
Well, with relative ease and relatively early. And that's such an important thing. Every manager will tell you they love to get players in early so they can sort of embed them, tactically, get them to know the other players. I mean, I think from Arsenal's perspective, I mean, everyone knows they're looking for a number 9. They've looked at Šeško, they've looked at him for a while. Obviously, Gyökeres as well. I think if Arsenal get a number 9 over the line and they manage to sort out Thomas Partey's contract and keep him because he had a good second half of the season, then I think they will be fairly content. They probably still need a left-sided player. Apparently, I think the Telegraph are linking them with Madueke, who's had a very good second half of the season at Chelsea. So. Yeah, but look, Chelsea will go and buy. They're being linked with people. They're probably stockpiling wingers as we speak. But you just look at Liverpool and Manchester City, and Liverpool's spending in particular. They only spent 10 million on Chiesa last year, so they've built up a war chest. They've got the Champions League money, and Slot won the title with Klopp's squad, and now he's strengthening, enhancing it. They've lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, but Frimpong comes in there. They've got Conor Bradley, so yeah, Liverpool will be the team to beat.
Okay, gentlemen, great stuff. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the morning papers, including these two stories in the Telegraph. Win or bust, penny finally drops for Bazball, and Australia in plastic lions jive. to our guests, Jonathan Liew and Henry Winter. We are going to go to the Telegraph and we're going to talk cricket, Jonathan. I know you're all over your cricket. Win or bust, penny finally drops for Bazball. I guess when Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum first took over, it was as much about style as it was substance. Yes, it worked, but it was about the brand of cricket that they were going to play. They're now saying, you know, with India and then latterly the Australian series coming up in the winter, they've got to make sure they win.
Yeah, very interesting to see Stokes today defending his record over the last 3 years. And there have been some incredible successes, you know, triumphing in Pakistan, you know, winning in New Zealand. That they've won far more than they've lost. But in this job, I think everyone knows this. It's a compact that every England captain, every England coach takes on. You have to beat India and you have to beat Australia. And obviously they missed their chance against Australia 2 summers ago. They lost quite heavily the last time they toured India. And I think if, you know, this is a real opportunity for them to I think put out a big statement win. India are obviously under Shubman Gill. They've got a new captain. They don't have a settled number 3. They don't have a settled number 6. They're not entirely sure what the makeup of their attack is going to be. They are a team in transition, obviously, with the retirements of Kohli and Rohit, and doubts, I think, over whether Buba is going to play all 5. I think maybe 3 or 4 is the best we can expect from him. So there is a real opportunity for Stokes' England here, with, I think, potentially the most settled top 6 in world cricket, and a raw but very exciting attack. You know, we will have Bryden Cast taking the new ball for pretty much a role that he's not really played for Durham, let alone England. And then Josh Tongue, who obviously missed the whole of last summer with injury. And I think it is a real opportunity, because people talk about these 10 tests as a kind of a block. But I think if England lose to this series to India, against a team ranked below them in the ICC rankings, with all of the kind of the transition that they're going through, it won't be a sure thing that Stokes actually makes the Ashes. The call to sort of jump on the Harry Brook bandwagon ahead of that tour to Australia might actually be quite tempting. So Stokes is playing for his own future as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty punchy call, isn't it, Henry, playing for his future, Ben Stokes, because he's been very much at the forefront of this England resurgence. It's very much his team, and he is so talismanic. I mean, he speaks the day before the test, as captains do, but you get a real sense that this is a leader who kind of drags his team into battle in Ben Stokes.
But he's also the type of sporting individual who loves being written off. So I think sort of any headline sort of questioning him, and Johnny's right. You know, there will be questions about him. I mean, it would be a huge call, even if England have a reverse in these tests against the Indians, to actually drop him, to drop a character like that. I mean, the Australians would absolutely love that. So yeah, I would be surprised. I mean, Johnny's right about the bowling, but I still think they'll be looking at the weekend and just see how Jofra Archer sort of gets through. I think he's playing at the weekend. He's easing his way back in. But look, it's a fabulous. I mean, for cricket fans, I mean, I'm going to a couple of the tests just as a punter, because it's, you know, this is sport at its very, very highest. I mean, obviously the Ashes is the main one, but, you know, India with Buba and players like that. I mean, as you say, it's a pity Kohli's not there, but it's going to be absolutely fascinating duel between these two great sides.
Yeah, he says, and you know, you're right, Henry says that the Ashes is the big one, and we look at it very much through that lens, don't we, as England fans, but actually, India's the powerhouse of world cricket. These guys are superstars, even without the likes of Kohli and Sharma and Ashwin. And that actually this series is huge, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Richard Gould, the ECB chief executive, saying, I think it was last week, that India is now basically on a par with the Ashes, certainly in terms of the commerce, the financial aspect of it, but also for the players in terms of, you know, like you say, the powerhouse of the world game. You want to perform to the biggest possible audience, and putting in a statement performance against India in whatever format, that does turn heads, and it gets you a reputation that nothing else really can in this game.
OK, Henry, let's focus a little bit on the Lions, the British and Irish Lions. They play in Dublin against Argentina. Then, of course, it is off to Australia. Australia at the back of the Telegraph, or the Telegraph say, Australia in plastic Lions jibe. Schmidt takes swipe. This is Joe Schmidt, the Australian coach, at Southern Hemisphere pair. The centre, the British Lions likely centre pairing, both hail from the Southern Hemisphere. The mind games have begun.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, it's great for the media. I mean, a Lions test really doesn't need sort of much ramping up. But if the Australians are getting a little bit sort of hot under the collar, and it was interesting reading his quotes. He sort of obviously knows the two characters quite well, and he was sort of talking about their strengths, almost as if he was implying that there simply isn't anyone else of their caliber, in the Four Nations over here. So. Yeah, I mean, look, the Lions are playing by the rules. I know there was a fair bit of debate because there were 8 foreign-born players in the, 36, 38-man squad. So you can understand that debate there. But, the Australians have seized on it. So I think first shots have been fired.
First shots have been fired, and Richard Wigglesworth has fired back, Jonathan. The Times, don't doubt Lions' desire, Schmidt told. Richard Wigglesworth, the Lions assistant coach, said he felt the comment was designed to distract them, basically saying that these guys have earned the right to play for the Lions, and it's a big deal playing for the British and Irish Lions. They're not going to be put off with that kind of, I don't think it's trash talk, but certainly mind games.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Joe, what is more plastic than a proud New Zealander coaching Australia, or indeed, Joe Schmidt has a proud New Zealander who's basically spent most of the last 15, 20 years coaching somewhere else, most of it in the Northern Hemisphere, and so there is a kind of ridiculous element to it as well, but there is also a slightly sinister dimension, I think. It's a bit of mind games, it's a bit of knockabout, but I think once you go down this road, I'm a guy who often gets asked, like, where are you from? Oh, no. But where are you actually from, though? And I think, once you start going down that road, and we see it in the political climate that we're all kind of steeped in at the moment. That where are you from? Where are you actually from? This idea that only a native son of the soil can be a true citizen and this stuff is. You don't want to play games with this stuff, because you take yourself down into some very dark and sinister places.
OK, well said. We're going to move on to this bromance between Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino. Just explain this one. We haven't got that long, Henry, but explain what's happening here in the Telegraph and the relationship between these two powerful men.
I can explain it in 3 words: power and ego.
We've got a bit longer than that.
I'll leave Johnny, who's a great sort of politician, to look into Trump. But from Infantino, who was quite a sort of respected, slightly calm character, not necessarily so ego-driven when he was working at UEFA, but the moment he steps into to FIFA and the corridors of power there, his head gets turned, and it's like he thinks he's a world global political leader. He is a sports administrator. He's got the Juventus squad here. OK, there are a couple of American players, but he's sort of turning around. He's asking the most extraordinary questions. I mean, it's just absolutely bizarre. So and FIFA keep telling us that sport and politics shouldn't mix. Well, have a look at that.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I would have loved to have got Jonathan's views on Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino. But gentlemen, thank you very much, both of you, for your company. And if you've missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Backpages tonight at hour. And the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Backpages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us again on Friday night, when our guests will be Ian Ladyman from the Daily Mail and the Scottish Sun's Roger Hannah. Rory McIlroy bounced back from his disappointment at the US Open. He carded 64 at the Travellers' Championship. More details of that on the way. I've got it. Could you, I've just turned my computer off.